The surprise was supposed to make everyone smile. Celebrity chef Antonio Rossi had just finished teaching Ellen how to make his famous Italian pasta when the cameras cut to a pre-recorded segment revealing that Ellen was flying Antonio's biggest fan, 78-year-old Maria Santos, from her small town in New Mexico to meet her culinary hero. But when the cameras returned to the studio and Maria walked onto the stage, Ellen knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. The elderly woman wasn't walking toward Antonio with excitement. She was walking like someone in a dream, her steps uncertain, her eyes unfocused. And in 90 seconds, Ellen would discover that some surprises reveal truths too painful for television to contain. The Warner Brothers studio had been buzzing with anticipation all morning. Antonio Rossi, the James Beard award-winning chef whose restaurants had become destinations for food lovers worldwide, was Ellen's featured guest. His cookbook had topped bestseller lists for 18 consecutive weeks, and his warm personality made him perfect for Ellen's show. The cooking segment had gone flawlessly. Ellen had fumbled charmingly with pasta dough, while Antonio guided her with patient humor, creating exactly the kind of lighthearted content her audience loved. "Now," Ellen announced to her studio audience, "we have a very special surprise for Antonio." She turned to face him with that mischievous smile that always preceded her most heartwarming moments. "A little bird told us you have a superfan who's been following your career for decades." Antonio's face lit up with curiosity and delight. "Really? I love meeting people who share my passion for cooking." "Well, she's been writing to your restaurants for 20 years, trying every recipe from your cookbooks, and she's traveled hundreds of miles just to eat at your establishments. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Maria Santos from Albuquerque, New Mexico." The audience erupted in applause as the stage doors opened, but Ellen's smile began to fade as Maria emerged. Something about the woman's movement seemed off. Maria was impeccably dressed in a navy blue dress with pearl earrings, her gray hair neatly styled, but her steps were hesitant, almost confused. She looked around the studio with an expression that wasn't excitement or nervousness. It was bewilderment. Antonio didn't notice anything amiss. He walked toward Maria with arms outstretched, his face beaming with the genuine warmth that had made him beloved by millions. "Maria, I cannot believe you are here. Welcome to the show." But instead of returning his enthusiasm, Maria stopped walking entirely. She stared at Antonio for a long moment, then looked around the studio as if seeing it for the first time. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible over the audience's welcoming applause. "I think there's been a mistake. I don't know why I'm here." Ellen felt ice form in her stomach. She walked quickly toward Maria, her television instincts telling her to keep smiling even as alarm bells rang in her mind. "Maria," Ellen said gently, "you're on the Ellen Show. We brought you here to meet Chef Antonio Rossi." Maria looked at Antonio again, then back at Ellen. "I'm sorry. Who?" The studio audience's applause was tapering off, replaced by confused murmurs. Antonio's smile faltered as he realized something was seriously wrong. Ellen made the kind of split-second decision that separated good hosts from great ones. "Can we pause for just a moment?" she called to her production team, then immediately turned her full attention to Maria. "Honey," Ellen said, stepping closer to Maria and speaking in the gentle tone usually reserved for children or frightened animals, "do you know where you are right now?" Maria looked around the studio again, taking in the lights, the cameras, the audience. "I was at home," she said slowly. "I was cooking dinner for my husband. He should be home from work soon." She touched her pearl earrings nervously. These were his mother's earrings. She gave them to me when we got married. Ellen's heart began to break as understanding dawned. She looked toward the wings where Maria's family member should be waiting and saw a middle-aged woman watching with tears streaming down her face. "Maria," Ellen said carefully. "What year do you think it is?" 1987, Maria replied, without hesitation. "Ronald Reagan is president. My husband Carlos works at the bank downtown." Ellen closed her eyes briefly, then opened them and made another decision. "Cut the cameras," she called out clearly. "Everyone stop." The studio fell silent. Ellen walked over to the woman in the wings, who was obviously Maria's daughter. "What's happening here?" Ellen asked quietly. "Alzheimer's," the woman whispered. "I'm her daughter, Carmen. She was diagnosed 8 months ago. She used to cook constantly, always talking about this chef she admired. I hoped maybe seeing him would bring back some joy. But she's been getting worse so quickly." Ellen felt tears prick her eyes. She looked back at Maria, who was now examining the cooking station with confused interest, and at Antonio, who had gone completely pale as he realized what was happening. Ellen walked back to Maria and Antonio. "Antonio," she said softly, "Maria has Alzheimer's disease. She doesn't remember why she's here." Antonio's expression transformed from confusion to deep compassion. Without hesitation, he approached Maria again, but this time his demeanor was entirely different. "Maria," he said gently, "would you like to cook with me? I have some beautiful ingredients here." Something in his tone seemed to reach her. Maria looked at the pasta dough, the fresh herbs, the olive oil. "I love to cook," she said, and for the first time since entering the studio, she smiled. "My husband loves my cooking." "I'm sure he does," Antonio said. "What's his favorite dish?" "Spaghetti, carbonara," Maria said immediately. "I make it every Friday night." Antonio's eyes lit up. "That's one of my favorites too. Would you show me how you make it?" For the next 20 minutes, the cameras remained off while Maria and Antonio cooked together. She couldn't remember where she was or why she was there, but her hands remembered how to cook. She guided Antonio through her version of carbonara, her movements becoming more confident as muscle memory took over. Ellen watched from the side, tears flowing freely. She'd seen many emotional moments over the years, but this felt different. This was about love transcending loss, about finding dignity in the midst of devastating illness. When they finished cooking, Maria tasted the pasta, and her face lit up. "Carlos will love this," she said. Ellen made one final decision. She approached Maria and Antonio at the cooking station. "Maria," Ellen said, "I want you to take this recipe home to Carlos, and I want you to know that you are an amazing cook." She turned to Antonio. "What do you think about Maria's carbonara?" "It's perfect," Antonio said, his voice thick with emotion. "Maria, you have a gift." Ellen looked directly into the camera that had quietly resumed rolling. Sometimes the most beautiful moments happen not when everything goes according to plan, but when we remember what really matters. Maria may not remember why she's here, but she remembers love. She remembers the joy of cooking for someone she cares about. She turned to Maria's daughter, Carmen, who had joined them on stage. "Carmen, I want you to know that the Ellen DeGeneres Foundation is going to help connect you with the best Alzheimer's support resources available." The episode that aired was unlike any Ellen had ever produced. It was honest about the reality of Alzheimer's disease, while celebrating the moments of connection that remain possible even in the midst of memory loss. Maria never remembered being on the show, but every Friday night until her condition progressed too far, she made carbonara for Carlos, and it always made her happy. Carmen said later that for those brief moments at the stove, her mother seemed to return to herself. Antonio Rossi was forever changed by the encounter. He began hosting monthly cooking classes for families dealing with Alzheimer's, understanding that food could be a bridge to connection, even when words failed. And Ellen learned that sometimes the most profound television happens when you stop trying to create perfect moments and instead honor the imperfect, heartbreaking, beautiful reality of human experience.